All right, welcome to episode 19 of Q&A with Coach. As you can see, I'm not alone. Today, Travis Macy is going to help answer your questions about running. All right, guys, let's dive into today's show. Super pumped. I'm here with Travis Macy, pro ultra runner in Evergreen, Colorado. We just went for about a 10-mile run.
I think so. I don't know exactly how far it was, but
we weren't really measuring. But had a great little tour of all the trails here around Elk Meadow in Evergreen. And so today we're talking about overtraining. And first, have you ever been in a situation where you've felt overtrained, you felt like you've been throttling it a little too hard?
Yeah, I definitely have, and I think I've been lucky really in my adult running career, both as a runner and at other times as a professional mountain biker or adventure racer. I've been lucky as an adult never to go too far deep into a cycle of overtraining. And I think that actually, ironically, came from a learning experience I had as a college student. I was running at CU Boulder, and this is obviously a very competitive program. I wasn't one of the top guys by any means, but I walked on, I got on the team, and I was really psyched to be there with these guys like Dathan Ritzenhein and Jorge Torres, and really top level running guys. And foolishly as a 18-year-old kid, I told myself, well, all I have to do to be as fast as Dathan is just run with Dathan every day. And so lo and behold, I was out there, not only trying to keep up with these guys in workouts, but also probably more crucially on the recovery days. And instead of doing easy runs at my own pace and distance, I was trying to go out and do easy runs with these really high level runners. And as most listeners are probably guessing, it didn't work out very well. And I pretty much just ran myself into the ground. And at that time, with the severe overtraining, I remember I'd wake up in the morning, and just every day for months my legs would just hurt, getting out of bed, just pain straight out of bed. No, it wasn't a good thing. So, I noticed that, and then, another key and probably the biggest downside were races. I just wasn't performing nearly up to my potential in races. And I remember, starting a race and 30 seconds in, just feeling totally blown and like my legs were, incredibly heavy, how they should feel, maybe at the end of a marathon or an ultra run or something like that.
I've had those races where, a minute in, you feel like you just did a 20-mile warm-up or something
exactly.
like that, and you don't get any snap in your legs, you can't turn over, and I think that's probably one of the big telltale signs that, there may be an overtraining problem going on. And I think maybe what's really helpful that I think we can talk about is, how do you know if you're overtrained? What are some of the signs that you can look out for that may be pointing to the fact that, okay, maybe I've been pushing it a little too hard?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things that I differentiate in my own training and in the athletes I work with is kind of, all right, are we looking here at overtraining, or maybe just sort of some temporary overreaching, pushing yourself a little bit in training. And, for me, if I know that maybe I'm pushing it a little bit, let's say if I do a workout and I'm trying to do a workout where I'm going really hard and getting my heart rate up in, zone 4 or 5 out of a 5-zone system. If I'm trying to do one of those workouts and I can't get my heart rate into those upper zones, then I know my legs are tired, because my legs just won't go that hard. And so having that happen, maybe one day or something, probably not a big deal. If I can then, take some easy days or take a day off, and then I do the workout again a few days later and it works fine, then I know I'm okay. But let's say I try that a number of days in a row, or have that feeling, for weeks or months at a time, then it's probably a deeper issue. And there's, the physical things like that, like heart rate, just simply how do you feel, but also, I think mentally and psychologically
that's huge.
Is a big piece of it, because you know, if you go into a hole physically, it's probably going to start affecting you mentally. And I know for me, you know, things like even just less patience, you know, in life or with my kids, or a little bit extra agitated, things like that. I've realized, or okay, maybe I've pushed it a little bit here, and I need to, you know, kind of back off a bit.
Right, mood. I think your mood and how you're feeling, you know, mentally, how you approach other stressful things in your life. If you don't have any patience, and if you don't have the coping mechanisms. You know, we were talking about our toddlers earlier. Coping mechanisms. You know, if you start acting like your toddler, there's a really good. There's a litmus test right there. If you start acting like your toddler, then maybe there's an overtraining issue. But I think it's really important to differentiate normal training fatigue from overtraining. I mean, if you're training for any race, even if you're training for a 5K or a 100-mile ultramarathon, you know, the types of training you're doing is going to make you tired, and that's kind of the point. Like, you want to have a certain level of fatigue, because that's signaling to your body that, okay, we need to get stronger, we need to get faster, we need to get in better shape. But I think when, you know, ultimately your training load gets so high that it just limits your body's ability to recover, and so if it becomes this kind of chronic thing, and you're just digging yourself further into that ditch, that's when you know, okay, if there's something going on for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, there's another good indication that, you know, you might be pushing it too hard.
Absolutely.
Now, you train a lot for 100-mile races, ultra endurance races, long distance mountain bike races. Is it harder to get overtrained when the intensity of your training is relatively low, as opposed to someone who, you know, could be doing 3 or 4 really fast, hard days of their training for, say, a short race like a 5K? Is it mostly intensity based in your view, or is it also volume and mileage based?
That's a great question, and I think, you know, I don't know if I can give a defined answer, because I think it's so different for different people, and also what you're used to. You know, I mean, for me right now, I was telling you, I don't do a whole lot of high mileage, but I do a lot of vertical in my training. So I do a ton of running up and down hills, and if you take someone who's not used to doing that, and all of a sudden they do that, they'd probably be pretty burnt out, you know, pretty quickly, and it might go into a hole. And you know,
like I am after the run with the
exactly. But if you know, you told me you did 8x200 yesterday. I mean, I could probably do that once, but if I tried to do that, you know, 3 times in a week, I'd be in trouble. And so I think a lot of it is what you're used to, and I think there is potential for burnout and overtraining in short, fast stuff, in high mileage stuff, or in, you know, kind of hill-based training that's, you know, neither of those. One thing I also tell people is, you know, these things like overtraining, you can learn about that through experience. So many things about running are just experiencing them, whether it's racing or training or nutrition or race strategy or dealing with adversity. All of these things are things that we learn about over time, and you can also learn about it from other people, and I think that's a huge value of having a coach, or having training partners, or having, you know, even just the other people in your life, having open and honest communication. Like, you know, if I'm starting to act like a toddler, tell me, so that I know. So, you know, not going it alone. You know, sometimes I think as runners we try to, you know, just tough it out through everything and, you know, do it on our own. But my advice is ask for help, you know, from a variety of sources, and that can help you with many of these things.
Yeah, I remember writing about this concept of not being a lone wolf when it comes to your running and training, and if you have a support network, if you have someone that you can go to for advice, you're going to be a lot better runner, because you're going to be able to learn from both your successes and your failures a lot more rapidly, because you have that kind of feedback loop in place. I think that's really important. Okay, so let's talk about one more thing about overtraining. Let's say that you think you are starting to get overtrained. What do you do? Like, what do you have to just cut your season short and take like a month off and think about running 6 months from now, or are there some like things that you can do in the short term to help yourself get back on track?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think maybe I'll give 2 answers. The first one is trying to pay attention so that you don't go too far into a hole. So in other words, if you notice yourself starting to go down a little bit, take a long view And for me, that means, okay, what's more important? My race that's, 4 weeks or 10 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever away, what's more important, that race or today's workout when I was planning on doing X?
Yeah.
And if you ask me, probably that race coming up is more important than being able to accomplish something on a given day. And many times that's very hard, and it can be hard to let go of, doing that workout or hitting the weekly mileage or whatever. But being able to keep a longer view and perspective, I think, is essential to avoid going downhill. And that's true with overtraining. It's also true with an acute injury. Usually we get hurt with something's kind of hurt, and then we do something really hard, and then it's really hurt. So
yeah, taking the long-term view of your running, I think is, and I talk about this, I've probably talked this 25 million times on strength running when it comes to injuries.
Yep.
And making sure that you're not doing something today that is going to prevent you from running tomorrow.
Yep.
Because I think if you kind of think about tomorrow's run being more important than today's run, then you'll always be a little bit more conservative with pushing the effort when you shouldn't be. And of course, I'm not saying never push the effort, because you kind of have to do that sometimes. But knowing when to do that, knowing when to back off, and when to be more cautious is a skill. And I think that skill takes a lot of maturity in the sport to really understand and to internalize. But it's one that, man, once you have that, I think it's super important for overtraining, for injuries, for knowing when to push, for really getting as much out of your training as possible. Yeah,
you're always better off not injured or overtrained.
Yeah.
What's better, being slightly less fit or being injured and not able to do anything? Well,
I know. I always, I tell my runners, I'd rather you be on the starting line 5% undertrained than be the fittest person that can't run the race because your Achilles is blown up or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one answer. And then, okay, you realize, well, you have gotten burnt out physically and or mentally. And then, then it's, I think, making a conscious choice of, well, how am I going to revitalize myself? And again, that'll be different for different people. For some people, it's taking a break from running, whether that's 1 week or 2 weeks or a month or 6 months. For other people, it's like, okay, instead of only road running, I'm going to do some trail running, or instead of running up and down hills, I'm going to do a bunch of easy flat runs, or instead of running, I'm going to do some biking or swimming, or more weightlifting or something like that. So you have to ask yourself, what is going to revitalize you, mentally as well as physically. And probably physically, the key would be removing some of the training that got you to where you are. So whether it's the speed stuff, whether it's too much mileage, too much hills, whatever it is, you need to take a break from that so that you can come back. Because if you just keep plowing through, you won't, and you'll just keep going downhill.
I think one of the things that you said, I think was super important, is looking at what got you overtrained. So if you look at your training log, hopefully everyone watching this is keeping a training log, because I think that's really valuable, is looking at, okay, what did I do in the last month? If I was running 3 speed workouts a week, okay, maybe you should rein that in a little bit. If you're doing a ton of volume, maybe you cut back on that. And if looking at how you're feeling every day, if you haven't been getting as much sleep as you should be getting, I think that's one of the things distance runners need is a lot of sleep. You kind of have to recover from all the work you're doing. And if you're not, you're putting yourself at a bigger risk of being overtrained, because your body is not recovering enough. So it's this really important ratio of work to rest. And you can get overtrained, I think, by doing too much work. You can also get overtrained by doing too little rest. So it's making sure that balance is there in your training.
And that's training, and it's also life.
Life,
I mean, most people, running is one thing in life, but you also have a job, or you have kids, or you have all of these other things that are going on that accumulate in a workload and a stress load, and those are things to consider for sure.
Yeah, and stress load is important. I think if you're changing careers and having a baby and trying to run your first marathon all in 1 month, maybe something has to give there, and probably is going to be the running in that kind of a situation.
Probably.
Okay, everyone, that is episode 19. I really hope it is 19. I'm kind of guessing right now. I think it's episode 19 of Q&A with Coach. Travis, where can we find you if people want to know more about you and your work and your running?
TravisMacy.com is the place, and I wrote a book recently, The Ultra Mindset. There's some stuff about on that, mostly mindset kind of stuff.
Yeah,
touches on some of these topics and some other things.
I have a copy. You gave me a copy.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. And we're also going to do a giveaway. I want one lucky watcher of the show here to have their own copy of the book. I haven't read it yet. I just got it, but really awesome. I think it's one of those books where you're taking kind of these stories and all these crazy stories, because you've done some crazy races, adventure races, ultra marathons, and really taking the lessons that you learn from endurance training and racing and how they apply to normal everyday life. I mean, even just talking for the last 10 minutes, we talked about how running pertains to your kids and your job and stress loads and your overall workload, and I think the book really captures that. So really excited to give one of those away. Are you on Twitter?
Yeah, at Travis Macy on Twitter.
That's easy.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thanks for watching
Alrighty.
episode 19.
Thanks, guys.
And shoot Travis a line somewhere, Twitter or through his website, and say hey. I'm sure he'd appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Jason. Good stuff, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.